Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Albers, and welcome to Dingo and Coach. And I'm joined, as always, with my co-host Steve Ellis. And Steve, I tell you what, I'm really excited about our next guest, Dave Lenahan. He's a guy that I knew from back in my days at the Ohio Center for Broadcasting. He was my director, and I've been following his music career. We've been friends on social media and everything. And I know I told you all about him, and you've kind of looked into him. But it's going to be great
Yeah.
just to talk to Dave and catch up from him.
Well, we need to get some of his secrets because obviously he kind of molded you a little bit. So I want to ask him some questions about that.
Yeah, it'll be good to catch up. So, as we said, joining us is Dave Lenahan. And Dave, we really appreciate you joining us here tonight.
Oh, it's good to be here. Thank you so much for asking me, Dan. And good to catch up with you. Good to see you again. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's really great. And as I said earlier, Dave was my director at the Ohio Center for Broadcasting, and so let's go way back. So let's get back when
Yeah.
it started. When you were broadcasting, and I think was your first job. And tell me if I'm right or wrong on this. Was with a jazz station. Is that correct? And just talk about
Yeah,
how
that was my first paying gig was a jazz station. Yes, I did
Wow,
afternoon drive jazz, and I still love jazz music today. I
really?
do. The
Was
old school stuff, bebop. Love that.
So
Yeah.
where was that station? Was that station in Cleveland?
Uh, that was Akron, Cleveland area. Yeah, on
Really?
an NPR station. Yeah. Uh-huh.
God,
So
that is just
Are
crazy.
you from Cleveland?
I am. I grew up on the west side of Cleveland. Uh-huh.
Okay, is
Yeah.
that where you got started into the broadcasting or into the
Yeah. I
musical?
got I got I got started in college when I didn't make the hockey team. I was all depressed and I went to this dorm party and there was a DJ there playing music and I just watched him when I introduced myself and he told me, he goes, "Hey, I do a radio show." And I said, "Really? That's kind of cool. I have a friend whose dad owns a radio station. I've always been kind of interested in that." He goes, "Well, why don't you come on up, see my show, show you the station?" And I did, and I was like, "Oh man!" And I fell in love with radio. Next thing I know, I was doing a show, and it just went from there. So, yeah.
Was that hard?
Wow.
Was that hard to get to that jazz station to get that first real like job? Was that kind of a challenge, or was it a little bit easier than what you thought?
That one yeah, absolutely fell in my lap. It was just a luck thing. The program director approached me, said, "I heard you. I love your voice." And I was working in college radio.
Yep.
So he said, "I think you'd be a great jazz announcer." And I go, "Oh man, I appreciate it. I don't know a darn thing about jazz. I'm not your guy." He
Yeah.
said, "No, no, no. We're going to teach you, and you'll learn, and you will learn to love it." And dang, he was right. So I did that for a couple of years, and I really enjoyed it. I really did. And then from there, I graduated, and I got a job working in real commercial radio, and this was just outside of Youngstown. And that was a blast. It was at a station that also covered the Cleveland Browns.
Really?
Okay.
I
Wow.
was a huge Browns fan, so I was there. But I was doing the afternoon drive, and as the days got shorter, it was a daytime radio station.
Yeah.
And as the days got shorter, my shift started to disappear, because we'd sign off earlier and earlier.
Oh.
Really funny story about that. I was engineering a Browns game, and it started to get dark, and it was time to turn it off. And I called my boss. I go, "Dude, they're going into overtime. What do we do?"
Uh-oh.
He said, "FCC requires us to shut down." He goes, "So I'll tell you what, you shut down on the time you have to and just let the phones ring. Go home."
Oh no.
That was so hard to
Man.
do.
So wait a
Yeah.
minute. Why hold on. I don't understand it. So why would why I mean, what was the time frame that you only had from a
Yeah,
certain amount of hours to be on air, and then after that it was shut off automatically, or
absolutely. Back in those days, there were daytime only radio stations. And every time when the sun, you would go by the average time of the day that the sun set. And
oh
as the days got shorter and shorter, and in the fall, it got really short.
Yeah.
wow.
So it was absolutely crazy. Yeah, it was. That was a wild day.
And I bet you the Cleveland fans, if that did go and they cut it off, I'm sure they went crazy.
Every line was lit, and like I said, I
Oh
shut her
no.
down, drove home.
Yeah.
Oh my
That's
God.
crazy. That
Wow.
is crazy.
It was nuts. Yeah. It was so funny. My best friend at the time worked at a station across town, and if you know anything about Youngstown, the Youngstown market is just split down the middle. Half are Steelers fans, half are Browns fans. So his station covered the Steelers, and I was Browns. So
That's great.
Oh man, we used to meet in Youngstown and have a heck of a time, man.
I bet, man. That's a great story, though.
I even got one better. You want to hear this? The owner of the station was, man, he was, I don't know how to, well, this story will tell you what kind of guy he was. Okay. So he invited all of our major clients to a Browns game. And so we got on a bus, we had a nice hors d'oeuvres, things to eat, beer and everything flowing. We're having a wonderful time. We drive all the way up to Cleveland. And as we're getting off the bus, he's handing out the tickets to the show. And I look at the tickets and it says Cleveland Browns versus the Seattle Seahawks the week before.
No.
Oh, no.
No.
And I go to the owner, I go, Mike, these are last week's tickets. I don't know if you know this or not. And all our major clients are on this bus.
Oh, no.
Oh, my God.
We spent like the first quarter of the game out in front of the box office pleading, and they finally let us in. Crazy. That was a crazy day.
That is nuts.
So what brought you to Cincinnati to WBE? I mean, because that's obviously, as you know, a huge country station down here, and what was that experience like, and what brought you down here?
And what brought me down was the school, and at the time it was called the Connecticut School of Broadcasting.
Yep.
Okay.
And we had offices in Cleveland. I helped them open the Chicago school, and then we had one in Cincinnati. And when he hired me, the guy who owned the schools, he said, "I'm gonna hire you within mind to probably move you to Chicago or Cincinnati. We'll see how things work. I'm not sure where I'm going to need you at this point in time." So I worked in Cleveland radio part-time as I was running the school. And finally, there was a need for a Cincinnati director, and he said, "Listen, we'll move you down there. We'll pay we'll pay for me to move down there." And so I did, and I took over, and it was a lot of hard work, and I didn't have time for anything else at the time. But a year or so into this thing, we kind of got leveled out, and I was deciding I really wanted to be back on the air because I missed it.
Yeah.
And B105 had an opportunity. The program director was new at the time, Tim Clausen, and I got to know him a little bit, and I just sent him. I just sent him a little. It wasn't a text at the time; it must have been an email, right? Oh, might not even been an email. No, it was in '91. I called him. I must have called him
the old-fashioned way.
And I go, "Dude, if you need one, I would love to come work for you because I like what you guys are doing." And next thing I know, I was so, and I loved it. You guys, I got right into that at the right time because that was early '90s. Garth Brooks was just breaking out. Next thing we know, country's the hottest thing. We were #1 radio station, and I always tell we were all rock stars at the time. It was just absolutely amazing. So
what year, Dave, what year was that you were on air with UBE?
It was 91 through about 98. And then I left for a while and actually I thought I was out completely, guys. And I was selling luxury automobiles, Lincoln Mercury of Kings Auto Mall. And I get a call out of the blue one day from that program director at B105, and he's asking me to come back. I go, "Dude, I'm telling you, I'm done. I'm done.
Right.
Really. I'm doing what I want to do. I'm making money, and I'm over."
Right.
That was a weird phone call. And I get a phone call from the afternoon guy at B105, who I loved and admires in the Country Hall of Fame right now. And he's saying the same thing. I go, "Dude, what the hell is going on?"
Yeah.
And the assistant program director calls. And I go, "I don't understand what's going on." And then I get a call from this general manager of another radio station. They said, "Hey, we just bought this frequency, and I'd like you to come work for us." And I go, "Oh, well, that explains a lot." And I said, I'm not interested. And I thank you for the offer, but really, I'm fine, and I don't want to go through this again.
Yeah.
And he said, "Okay, I understand." Then he calls me again about 2 weeks later, and he goes, "Hey, things are going good at the station. They told me I could get a company car, and I like those new Lincolns. Could you bring one down for me? We'll go out to lunch, and I want to look it over. We'll buy one from you." That's great. I hop into the car. I take it down there. I get there to the front desk, and she says, "Oh, he's in his office." He said, "Go on back." So I go on back, and he goes, "Hey, first of all, I'm telling you, I lied to you."
Uh-oh.
Because I just want to introduce you to the program director, and he introduces me. And this is a guy I knew from reading about in the trade papers and stuff. He was a big country music programmer. And he says to this guy, he goes, "If you could have Dave Lenahan on this station, where would you put him?" He said, "I put him in Afternoon Drive." And I went, "Really? Wow." I said, so you're talking about a full-time position?" He goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, I don't think so." And first of all, I make more money I ever did. And he says to me, he puts me in the driver's seat. And this is the only time in broadcasting I've ever experienced it. I hope someday you can too. He says, "There's got to be a number that would make it work.
Uh-oh.
You do an Afternoon Drive. What would it be?" And so I shot really high. And he didn't even blink. So obviously I didn't shoot high enough. He said, if I could do that, would you come and join me?" And I laughed. He goes, "What?" I go, "You're telling a car guy if I could, would you?" That's exactly what I said. That was a quote.
Funny.
And he started laughing. He goes, "I'd have a contract to you in the mail by the end of the week." No. And I said, "Well, let me talk over with my wife." And I went home, and she said, "Gee, that kind of money, yeah, let's do it." And it was just fantastic. But it was hard to go against all my buddies at B105. But it was also the time of my life. I had such a great time living the dream. And
where was that? What station was that? What
at the time they called it the new 96.5. Nobody plays more country. And we kicked some butt. We really did. Yeah, we had them on the ropes. It was fun.
Really?
It was.
That's that. What is that station still around, or is it still?
No, they sold it. They sold it. Then it became like Star 96.5, and then the company that owned B105 bought it, and then they automated it on a different frequency. So yeah, it's long gone. But
God, that's crazy, Dave. That's a great opportunity there when they offer you, said what kind of money you want, and you throw it out and you get that. That's pretty crazy.
I'm like, "Oh, did I say that? I really meant this."
More.
So was that the Wolf?
Eventually I think it became the Wolf. Yeah, but they changed the frequencies. They went from 96.5 to 94.3 or whatever, because 96 was a really powerful signal. So I think they wanted the signal. To do something else with it. And then they moved that one on down and called it the Wolf. That's right. And then Pistol Pete ran that for a while.
Pistol Pete.
Okay.
Pistol Pete, we lost him a couple years ago. Yeah. God bless him. Oh, man.
Crazy.
Dear friend.
So I got to ask this, and I'm just blinded here, so back then I vaguely remember, and I'm trying to put two and two together here. Are you Big Dave?
No, but good question. At 96.5, I did Afternoon Drive. And Big Dave was looking for a position. So he really wanted to do mornings, but we had a morning show with Bubba Bo. And so they gave him a position doing evenings. So he was on right after me. So he was Big Dave. Okay. I was Little Dave,
Okay. Wow. All right.
Yeah. I'm so proud of him and so happy for him. He is one of the greatest guys you will ever meet. And I am so thrilled with all his success, his CMA awards and ACM awards. And he does a heck of a job. And I love the guy. I really do.
Dave, I could be wrong, but I think when I was at the Ohio Center for Broadcasting and I was interning and doing some stuff, I did a lot of stuff with B105 and GRR and Q102.
Did you? Yeah.
And I kind of remember doing stuff with Big Dave, but he was like he said, I think he was the afternoon guy, because I'm trying to think, the more Orlando maybe have been in the morning, maybe
Orlando,
so I do remember working with those guys. And then the guy that's on now, God, I can't think of his name now. He was young at the time, and he was the program or the media or the marketing guy. God, I can't think of his name. He's on now with them. And he was a young kid. I'm sorry, I draw a blank, but it's just funny how it's all changed and how everybody's grown. And like, Big Dave did, like he just started from the bottom, worked himself up.
He sure did. And, when he left, it was Star 95.65 at the time. When he left them, he went back to B105 and he got into sales. because Tim said, "Listen, man, I don't have anything for you right now, but why don't you take a job in the sales department?" And he offered me the same thing, but I didn't want to sell radio again. I really didn't. I knew I could. I was very confident in my sales skills as far as cars, so I went back to the car business. And it was so funny. I was on the lot like the week after I took the job, and I was talking to this guy, and I handed him my card. He looks at it, he goes, "You used to be Dave Lenahan."
That used to be.
Yeah, actually, I still am.
That's funny.
That's so funny.
Let's get back into the real quick about the Ohio Center for Broadcasting, because I had a kind of late start. Obviously, I was probably one of the older ones there, but I absolutely loved my time there, and it was just I think you had a great staff. With Eric Armstrong and Phil Tucker.
Eric, great guy.
You had some great guys, and I'm going to tell you this story real quick. I'm not sure if you know this, but back when I was in school, you obviously knew that my love was for sports, and I remember you. Cincinnati State said, "Hey, we need a play-by-play guy," and I remember you were the one that said, "I got a guy for you." And I don't know if you ever heard the story about how I got that job. It was weird. So I went there. I sit down. The basketball coach, he was also the AD. They had two other people, and we're sitting at this round desk. And he goes, "All right, go ahead." I'm like, "Go ahead, what?" He goes, call a game. And I'm like so I had to make something up. So I'm just sitting there going, Johnson passes to Reed. He shoots, score. And he's like, "You got it." And I'm like, "You got to be kidding!" Kind of weird. Like,
that's wild.
Yeah. And then he says to me, "Well, we start in like 3 weeks." And I said, "All right, do you have any equipment?" He goes, "Nope." I'm like, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "We're on the internet." And so I had to figure everything out. Like I didn't have any equipment. I didn't have a name. I didn't have a website. So I had like less than a month to get this all figured out to try to get us on air. I don't know if you ever knew that or not, but I had to like try to figure that out.
I don't think I ever did, but gosh, what a learning experience, huh?
It really was. But
after something like that, you could do anything, right?
Well, I tell you what, I owe a lot to you, because that kind of catapulted me to. I did Cincinnati State men and women's basketball. I did Mount St. Joe men and women's basketball.
Nice.
Did Anderson football, and then I've been doing UC Claremont volleyball and all that. So, and I started my own little internet broadcasting company on the side. It's not huge or anything like that, but I owe a lot to you, Dave. Man. I really do. I mean,
if I may say, I'm very proud of you. Then, ready to go.
Well,
very
and one step further, he was just inducted into the Anderson High School Hall of Fame for his broadcasting.
Oh my God, that's awesome! Congratulations.
That's crazy.
That is really cool, man.
Yeah, it really. Hey, it's all because of you. I'm telling you, because I would have never had. I'm serious. I would have never had the opportunities if it wasn't for you, and you kind of just pushed me, and and did all the sport, and all you guys, Eric and Phil, and all those guys. They were great. You guys were. It was a great. For me, it was a great experience.
Oh man, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you so much.
Oh,
you know how great that makes me feel.
Well, that's why I've always wanted to reach out to you and get with you and kind of do something, and I'm glad we did, and I'm glad that we've caught up here. So it's I just had to tell you that story because I'm sure I didn't know if you heard that or not.
No, I don't think I ever did, and if I did, man, it's good to hear it again.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, Dan, were you part of the when we were doing the remember the women's professional football league that was Icky Woods?
You assigned me again as the main person, and I was the media director for Icky Woods and the Cincinnati Sizzle.
I think that was so much fun, wasn't it? Cincinnati Sizzle.
Yeah.
I think I still have a hat that says Cincinnati.
It was a blast.
Woods was such a great guy, Steve. You should have seen it. He'd come into the school. He'd do the Icky shuffle for us. Sign autographs, take pictures. He was just great.
That's funny. He was the best, and I'll never forget some of those women on that team. They were tougher than nails. I mean, they were. I had a girl. We were getting ready to go on the bus, and Icky stopped to do a prayer and all that, and I kind of was doing something, and I was shuffling around, and she turned around and she goes, "What are you looking at?" And I'm like
nothing.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. And she's, I'm kid. Just get on the bus.
You want to arm wrestle?
Yeah. That was fun time though.
So
that
Dave,
was
let's
fun
get
times.
caught up to date right now. So I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're down in Nashville, is that right?
I am, yeah.
Okay.
We
All
moved here
right.
about
So
10
so
years ago. Yeah.
10 years. All right. So let's talk about your journey there
Yeah.
and how far you've come since you've been there, and what you're doing down there right now.
Well, I have to say, the whole reason why I became a disc jockey, other than not making the hockey team, was I loved music. And I knew that I didn't have the talent to be the lead guitar player that my brother was, right? So I thought the next coolest job would be to play my favorite songs on the radio.
Yeah.
Because I was the one with the big record collection, always turning my friends on to new music, you know? So for me, I thought that would be the ultimate. So that's how I got into radio. So flash forward years later, as the 96.5 gig was coming to an end, I got contacted by a group called NSAI. I never heard of them before. It stands for Nashville Songwriters Association International.
Right.
And they've got chapters all over the world, and they're about cultivating and teaching the craft of songwriting. And they asked me to come and speak and talk about how songs make it on the charts, things like that. So I did. I went, and I was just amazed that in this room there were about 60 people, all who had a passion for writing songs. And I didn't know that such a group existed. And I've been writing songs since I was 11 years old. And I said, guys, I want to join your group. And I did. And they really taught me how to write a song.
Wow.
And I got really involved with it. They had a very strong chapter. We used to bring pro writers from Nashville into town all the time, putting on seminars. We put on a few festivals, songwriting festivals in Batavia. So I got to hang out and meet, a lot of these pro writers that have had big hits. And then we started to do a TV show called Nashville Connections. Every time one of these writers come in, we would do a cable TV show.
Yeah.
In Anderson, by the way.
I do remember. Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah. I used to bring the students into the film.
Yeah.
So I just got so entrenched in songwriting. And you might remember, I used to bring some of the pros into the school to talk to you guys about passion and living the dream.
Yeah.
So, and when I left the school, my passion still was in songwriting. So I still kept very involved with NSAI. And it was to the point now where I was coming to Nashville a lot. Mm-hmm. And we'd come down and we'd write, and I'd set up writing appointments. And every time I came to town, I'd play somewhere and write during the day, play at night. And eventually I knew that I wanted to be there. And so we were going to buy a condo, and I wanted to, the plan was buy a condo and make it a writer's retreat.
Yeah. And
I was going to Airbnb it for the times I didn't come. Rather than pay for a hotel, I'd have a place to stay. Right. And then when I didn't need it, rent it out. And my wife, Patty, had just retired from Cincinnati Public Schools as a teacher. And we're having gin and tonic on our deck in Cincinnati. She says, I got to tell you, I'm just not comfortable with that. I go, really? What's the problem? She goes, I hate to burst your bubble, but I just don't want to have a property, 4.5, 5 hours away from where we live.
Right.
And she knows I'm not a handy guy. I'd be a terrible landlord. So I said, all right, well, that's okay. I understand. And no problem, no worries. And she goes, but I go, but what? She goes, but I wouldn't mind moving to Nashville. I said, are you serious?
Wow.
Are you saying we're moving to Nashville? Or is that the gin and tonic talk? About a year later, that's where we were. We put our house for sale, and here we are. And we got here right at the right time. The housing boom was just starting. Yeah. We got very lucky and bought a new construction home, and we were off and running. Now, I wasn't ready to retire yet, so I went to work selling Lexus automobiles.
Really?
Which I love and adore and still drive one. And about 5 years after that, I said, you know what? I'm going to retire. I came here to do music. I want to do music. And that's what I've been doing ever since.
That is awesome.
I write almost every day. We set up appointments with the writers in town, young artists. I try to bring them along. I add to the catalog, and then I learn. I perform 4 nights a week, 4 nights a week. I've got my own little writers round, little place around the corner called 12 Keys. That's a lot of fun. I do a little radio still. I have a show called Nashville Connection on a station just outside of Cleveland and one just outside of St. Louis. and I the news in Nashville. We tape it on Thursday mornings. They run them on Friday, and then COVID hit.
Yeah,
and I kept doing the radio. And out of the blue, one day, Len Harvey, who used to run Metro Traffic in Nashville, old friend, he used to do traffic on my radio show, calls me out of the blue. He says, "Hey, man, I got this podcast, and I think you'd be a good guest." I go, "Are you serious?" He goes, "Yeah." He tells me all about it. I go, "Dude, you've got a podcast?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "I've often thought about doing that, but I don't know how to go about it. So I'll tell you what, I'll do your podcast. You teach me how to how to do it." Right.
That's awesome.
So we did, and we had a fun time. And I took 4 months to just research what kind of equipment, what kind of a show I wanted, kind of mapped out what I wanted to do, invested in some great equipment. And we launched the show in January of 2021. And the songwriter community here in Nashville has just jumped on it. It's been so much fun. I've had a lot of pro writers on the show. I'm to the point now where the publicist will contact me. "Can I get my guy on? Can I get this?"
Wow, that's great.
That's fantastic.
Yeah,
I was approached about a month ago to join a network called the Consequence Podcast Network. And we were in negotiations for about a month. And as soon as I made up my mind I was going to do it, they said, "Well, we changed our mind."
Oh, really? Wow.
And so here we go, back to square one. But heck, I don't really need them. I don't think. I do pretty well on my own. And it's just, Dan, it's like I used to teach in school. It's passion. And
oh yeah.
But in my retirement, I'm busier than I ever was, but I'm doing what I have a passion for.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
You can tell too, Dave. I've watched some of your stuff and watched your songs and everything, and we'll get into your songs here in a little bit. But yeah, you can tell you are definitely about as passionate about your singing and all that as I am about all the broadcast stuff.
So funny, and passion attracts passion.
Yep.
So a lot of my friends have that same passion.
Yep.
You can definitely hear it, but I have a crazy question that you probably get all the time is how do you go about your passion of writing songs? Like, is there an inspiration? How does it come to you? Because I mean, this is something that you love and you eat and sleep this. So how do you go about that?
Oh God, you talked about sleep. Here's one of them. About 3 weeks ago, this is my studio, you guys. My dining room is
nice.
Here we do the radio, we do the podcast in here. So I had this dream. So here's one example of how it sometimes can work. I had this dream. You have dreams where you're doing stuff and you go, you're dreaming. You go, "This is pretty cool. I got to remember this when I wake up." Right?
Yeah.
So sometimes, like this particular night, I'm playing and singing. There's people singing harmony with me. And I'm going, "This is really a cool impression. I got to remember this when I wake up." 9 times out of 10, you don't.
Right.
But that morning I woke up, I came right here to the studio, and for some reason I put this capo down on string 4, on capo fret 4, and I started going, and I'm going, "That's it." And the hook I remembered, which was, "Love's Gonna Find You." And I thought, wow. Now, my best friend down here is a #1 hit songwriter. His name was Billy Lee. And he had Gary Allen's big hit called "The One." He calls me up like he does every morning. He says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm drinking coffee." "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm drinking coffee." I go, "Not anymore. We're writing a song."
Oh, okay.
I said, "This is all I got. Love's gonna find you." And we worked on that song for 3 days before we got it right. And now it's one of my favorites, and I play it everywhere.
Wow.
I mean, so like I was, how you said about, being in bed, you remember the dream. I mean, has there been times when you're driving in the car and but do you have like a recorder or something like, and you start putting stuff in? Because I have to write stuff down or else I forget, and then I'll forget that I had that, like, I guess with my older kids, I'm not sure, but do you do the same? I mean, is it stuff that you just
I do
with all the time?
I do, yeah. Here it is. And I'm constantly hearing lines or a line pop in my head, sometimes an idea for a song, and I'm putting it in my phone. When we get into a writing session like today's writing session, today is really cool. Today I wrote with the lead singer of, remember the band Survivor?
Yeah.
Sure.
Eye of the Tiger.
Yeah.
This cat has been the lead singer for them for 7 years. His name is Cameron Barton. And I wrote with him and his producer today. And so we sat down and we started talking about ideas for songs. And I had presented one. They thought it was great. But he had something he had been working on. Great. I love it when the artist is working on it. He starts running through this. And I'll tell you, we started at 2. I left there at 5:30, and all we got done was the chorus of the song.
Really?
We probably rewrote it 10 times, but we finally got it perfect.
Is that frustrating though? I mean, like, or is it you're because your juices are flowing and it just, I mean, I don't know. I just would seem after a while would get, no.
And it's just a part of it, I mean, very rarely can you throw the touchdown at the 5-yard line when it's 1st and 10. 95 yards, very, very rarely. It happens sometimes, but very rarely.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just got to grind it out as a songwriter, So, so we just stick with it, and we keep playing with it, and we know where we want to go. We find out where the roadmap is, where we want to go. As I like to say, where Detroit is, and then we got to find a road to get there. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it goes really easy. Yeah. And if it's too hard and you work on it for so long, you realize, well, maybe this isn't the greatest idea. Let's move on. Let's go to the next one. Yeah. So that's how it is.
That's great. So a couple that I want to kind of get into, some of the songs that you have written, or is the first one I want to talk about is "Baby I'm Gone."
Oh man!
And was that your first Nashville cut? That
was my first Nashville cut? Yeah, I'm really proud of that one. We were at the Claremont Inn.
Really?
Yeah. And we used to do writers' rounds there all the time, Dan, and a really good friend of mine. He was also coordinator of Nashville's Songwriter Association. He and I were the only ones left in the circle. And I started playing this silly little riff, I'm going. And he was really good at just free-forming words out of nowhere, and he starts singing, "Baby, I'm gone. Baby, I'm gone." He kept going over and over with that. And I'm like, wow, there's something to that.
Yeah.
So the next day I called him up. I said, "Get your ass over here. We're going to write that song." I got an idea how to write this song.
Yeah.
And so he comes over, and I said, "Dude, here's where we're going to write this song." This guy's sitting in a bar getting drunk, and he wants to leave her, but he just doesn't have the strength. So when he says, "I'm going to be gone," he's talking about getting drunk.
Yeah.
That baby, I'm gone. And my buddy looks at me and he goes, "Yeah, I don't think I'd write it. I wouldn't use it." I go, "Are you kidding me? You son of a gun." So the first verse wrote itself. And then it took about 3 weeks from there. I was driving from Cincinnati to Cleveland in the car, and there's something about the car sometimes.
Yeah.
And the whole second verse came to me. And so I finished it up, played it at a writer's round, and everybody went nuts. I said, "I wrote that with this guy." I put his name on it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. No, that is.
We got it cut, and every quarter we get a little BMI check, enough for him to buy a bottle of wine. And he always says, "Hey, got a bottle of wine in you this week."
That's awesome, Dave.
That's funny.
For me, it's enough to take the wife to Waffle House.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I love me some Waffle House. We go to the one in Brentwood where they valet park your car. It's really cool. No.
Oh, that's awesome.
Waffle House.
The other song that I really, really like too, and it kind of really brought me back to my childhood, was big sports guy. When I saw the Louisville Slugger, I had to listen to that. I was listening today during lunch, and just to kind of get familiar with it and everything. But man, I'll tell you what, that really brought me back to my childhood. And exactly the verses that you had in there was like I was a little kid again.
We sent that to the Louisville Slugger Museum and got a really nice letter back from the general manager. He said, "Man, I was that 8-year-old boy in that song. Thank you so much. We just really love it." And but there was 4 of us on that song, and the whole idea came because we were driving back from Nashville. My wife and I, we stopped. I always wanted to see that. By the way, I love baseball. I'm a huge baseball fan.
Cleveland Indians or Guardians. I'm sorry, Guardians.
Well, no, Indians. Always.
I agree.
Well, you know what the compromise is? We always say they're the Indians when they win, Guardians when they lose.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. So And it's a frustrating year. But anyway, I said, we got to stop at that Louisville Slugger Museum. I've always wanted to see it. And have you ever been there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Isn't it cool?
It's really
Yeah.
cool.
When we went there, they had this little place for photos that you could get your picture taken holding somebody's bat, and I got my picture holding Mickey Mantle's bat.
Yes.
Wow. That's cool.
Man, chills when I still think about it today.
Yeah.
There's marks on the bat where he banged his cleats,
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man,
Cool.
the Mick, So
Yeah.
I was so inspired driving back home. I said, I want to write a song about a baseball bat. And so we were at that same buddy's house with a couple other friends, songwriters. And I said, guys, I want to write a song about a baseball bat. And the original idea was to write it from the baseball bat's point of view.
Yeah.
Boy and his bat, and so we started out with Ash Tree from the Catskills because it was ash what they made those, and they from the Catskill Mountains floated down to Louisville. They turned it down on a lathe, burned in the name Louisville Slugger, and that's how the song started. We probably did 5 co-writes of that song before we came up with the version you're hearing right now.
Wow.
More of a boy and his bat. And I just love how it came together. And I just love that song. And it kind of went away for the longest time. And one night I was playing at a place called the Cambria Hotel, the True Music Room, which is one of my favorite places to play here. And I'm looking out, there's a beautiful stage, and hanging above the bar was there's TVs, right?
Yep.
And I'm trying to figure out what song I'm going to do next. And I look up and everyone's got a baseball game. And the Indians had won that night. And I thought, I haven't Louisville Slugger in a long time. And so I did it. And man, the place went nuts. The guys behind the bar were big baseball fans. And every time I go back there, I have to play that song.
Yeah.
So I thought, what, I'm just going to record it. And I did. And it's on the new record. It was my second single from that record. And I love the way it turned out. And
it's a really good one. I listened to it multiple times today. And then the other one I want to talk about too, and this will be the last one, and then we'll throw it over to Steve, is the Squirrel Train. I saw that, and that kind of piqued my interest. And I saw that you say it's the most requested song that you play at shows. So talk a little bit about what the meaning is of that and how that all came about.
I write with an amazing artist named Pamela Hopkins, and if you look her up on Spotify or anything, you see her music. She's done like 5-6 songs that I've written with her and other people. And the first one was a song called "Giving a Damn Don't Go With My Outfit," and she had like over 1 million streams on that song, right? So she comes into town, and I got her a writer's round, and she was going to play with me and my friend Scott Barrier, and they got canceled. So I said, come over to my house. We'll do a Zoom live from my dining room table, and we'll just go. We'll do Facebook Live, and we'll do the show there. And so we did, and it was fun. And afterwards, we're talking, and we got to get together and write again. And I said, I've always wanted to write a train song. I don't have a train song in my repertoire. I said, but the problem is, it's a really long train. I got a very short attention span.
Yeah.
And Pam starts laughing, and she says, I'm the same way. She goes, I don't know if you know this, but my band is called Pamela Hopkins and the Squirrel Train, just for that reason. I go, you're kidding me.
Really?
I look at Scott. Scott looks at me, and we go, we're writing you a theme song.
Wow.
And we did. And it became an instant hit for her, and it started getting played all over the world. In fact, it went to #1 in Tasmania, just off the coast of Australia. So our joke has always been, we got #1 song in Australia. Yeah, Australia #1. So
awesome.
It went so well that I recorded it too. And it was my first single from the record, and it did well for me too. So
that's great. I love it. Those are some great songs, Dave. I enjoy listening to it today. It was really nice.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So I want to ask you about the town and the venues down there, because I've been down there a handful of times, and it's so electric and it's so fun, and it's almost like it's hard to stay at one place because you're afraid you're going to miss out on another place, whether it be the famous, what is it, the Bluebird, and then you have the other places. You talked about the 12 Keys, and the one place that My wife and I have gone to the Honky Tonk Central, and places like that.
Great place.
Talk about some of those places that you've been to, and what might be your favorite.
Bluebird, without a doubt. I played the Bluebird on July 11th, and it was kind of my CD release party. It's just, the Bluebird is to songwriters what the Opry is to artists.
Yeah.
And when you play there, it's just amazing to me that every show sells out in like 2 minutes.
Wow.
It's so hard to get tickets.
Yeah.
So to get there to play and put the round together myself, it was the 5th time I played there. This time they let me have my own round.
Yeah.
So it was quite an honor. So there's that. I love the place called the Listening Room. I play a lot at the Commodore Grill, which is in West End and the Holiday Inn there. They've been doing writers' rounds there forever, and all the big writers in town will play there. I play there at least once a week. There's a place across the street from there called The Local. Again, huge songwriters in and out of there. Artists sometimes. You'd be sitting in there, you'd be surprised who walks in. Here's Lee Brice there,
Yeah.
And a lot of times the locals will avoid the lower Broadway scene because it's just too nuts. And it's all cover music down there most of the time.
Okay.
Although I was doing a place down there quite often called Whiskey Bent. And that was fun. We did it on Sunday mornings before the football games. And that was fun. And that was fun. But the problem is now parking is getting incredibly hard.
Yeah.
And they're charging an arm and a leg. You may pay $35 to park.
Oof.
And you're working for tips. So but it gets bigger and better every year. That there's a bunch of new honky tonks opening this year, or early next year. There's Garth Brooks's place, Friends in Low Places.
Okay.
There's Hank Williams Jr.'s place is coming.
Wow.
Morgan Wallen's building a place. Eric Church's place is called Chiefs. That is going to be spectacular when it's done. I just can't believe that. I mean, they're talking 2-story ticketed event place in there where he's going to play.
Wow.
Stained glass windows like the Ryman Auditorium. Luke Combs has taken over Wild Horse Saloon. It just becomes a bigger playground every year, every month it seems.
Wow.
So it's just absolutely nuts. And then in the summertime, Nissan Stadium where the Titans play. Check this out. In the last 4 weeks, we've had Taylor Swift there, Beyonce, Ed Sheeran last week. This week, Friday and Saturday, it's George Strait with
my
Chris
goodness.
Stapleton. It's just nuts. This town is crazy, but I love it.
So the Wild Horse Saloon, is that the one that's on the far end where the horse statues are upside down in the ceiling?
Yeah, and they have the huge dance floor, all the line dancing.
Yeah, that's a huge place.
And Luke's people say they're going to continue with the line dancing and everything, but they're also going to build a ticketed event place. You're going to start seeing bigger and better shows every year. Okay,
so you had to have been down there when I can't think of the name of that TV show that was so popular about about Nashville. Well, it's called Nashville. That's right. Nashville, and all those singers would come on and they would play at the Blue Note, right?
Yeah, they would play at the Bluebird
or Bluebird.
Yeah. It's so funny. It looked exactly like the Bluebird, but they built a replica of the Bluebird.
I was going to ask you that. Yeah, okay.
Studio. And unless you had been there, you really couldn't, because it looked pretty darn good.
Okay.
But because of that, that's still the reason why you can't get in the Bluebird today. Yeah.
It's
nuts. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big thing. Time's got away from me now, but I mean, that was probably like 7 or 8 years ago or 10 years ago.
Yeah, 5, 6 maybe when it ended.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I was working at Ryman Auditorium when it ended. After I retired from Lexus, and I wasn't sure. I knew I didn't want to just stop completely. So I saw an ad for a tour guide at Ryman Auditorium, some other church of country music. I worked in country music radio for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's right up my alley. I could tell my stories and stuff. And I absolutely loved walking into the mother church every day.
I bet.
But I remember the last episode of the Nashville show ended at the Ryman. The whole cast came down to the stage and sat around and sang.
That
it was just,
cool.
I know where that is.
Yeah. That is cool.
Wow. So you had talked about your wife and she was in a Cincinnati public school system, and then got you to move to where you're at now. Talk a little bit about your family and the journey, from Cleveland to Cincinnati to Nashville and other places.
Oh man, the hardest move I ever made was coming from Cleveland to Cincinnati. And I remember getting all moved into the house and just like I was exhausted and I was convinced I made the biggest mistake of my life.
Oh my goodness.
But it all turned out well. And Patty got a job. She worked at Western Hills High School.
Okay.
Where Pete Rose went,
Yeah.
Yep.
And retired from there. But moving to Nashville was just easy. It was just the best.
Yeah.
It just everything lined up. It was just it's right when it just was so easy.
Yeah. Well, your passion. I mean, that speaks volumes right there.
Dave, I can't remember. Do you have any children? I can't.
We don't. We're blessed in so many ways, but not in that one.
Okay.
So, all you guys, when I was at the school, you were all my kids.
Yes, sir. I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
No,
and I love you guys too.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
So let's talk a little bit about that podcast that you're doing again. Let's get into that because Steve and I are into the podcast too. The Songwriters Connection. Again, talk a little bit. You talked briefly about how that got started. I know you're doing pretty well with that. Talk a little bit more about that.
It's exceeded all my expectations. I didn't know what to expect. In my research, I was seeing numbers and stuff. And I thought, well, that's not really why I'm doing it. I'm doing it for the passion, And today, we're closing in on 350,000 listeners, streams, downloads, subscriptions.
That's incredible.
We're on every site, including YouTube. And I'm really proud of that. And
it should be.
Yeah. And it's
congratulations.
I thought we were taking it to the next level with this network. It might still happen, but I kind of doubt it. But hey, there's other networks, and I'm doing okay with that.
Yeah. No, Dave, that's great that you do that. And we're going to wrap it up here real quick, but I wanted to do this real quick. I kind of do this on a lot of our podcasts. Is just maybe give us your favorite memory of maybe Nashville or a songwriter or something in your career, like something that really sticks out for you.
Oh wow!
I should have warned you.
Yeah. I think for songwriting, it was Tuesday, July the 11th. That's the day my new record was released, and the day I played my first featured round at the Bluebird.
Oh,
so
wow!
That's probably one of my favorite memories.
Very cool.
Top, yeah. So
yeah, that's great, Dave. That's
we're coming back December 13th. We're going to be back. So yeah. So,
okay. Well, I'll tell you what. If Steve and I ever make a trip to Nashville, we're going to have to look you up, and hopefully you'll be playing, and we'll be in the front row, and we'll be screaming and yelling, and have the shirt on.
You know what? I'll try not to suck.
Hey, you'll be great. Hey, one other quick thing we forgot to ask you. We got a buddy of ours. He he said I texted him. He said he knew you. He didn't know you very well, but he knows of you. You got the same circle of friends as Dan Varner. You know Dan Varner?
Dan Varner. Yeah, he's great. Great singer.
He's a singer here in Cincinnati. He plays all over the area. He's very popular here in our area, and he said he's got the same kind of guys with you guys and as you do, and so it's just great to have a connection with you two guys too. Both passionate. He's like you, very passionate about the country music, and he does the same thing.
He has got a killer voice, and he is country. I love him.
Oh yeah.
Tell him I said hey if you run into him.
I definitely will.
Come get down here. We're going to write a song. We're going to write him a hit.
Yeah, he would. I'm sure he'd love that. Yeah, I'll do that. Hey, Dave, let everybody know where they can reach out to all your. I know you've got a lot of stuff going on, but just kind of give them some of the information where they can reach out.
If you go to my webpage, which is real easy, it's thedaveconnection.com.
Okay.
So funny, connection has been a thing with me. It was the Nashville Connection TV show.
Yeah.
It was the Nashville Connection radio show, and now the Songwriter Connection podcast. So if you go to my website, there are links to all my songs, all my shows, where I'm playing next. There is links to the podcast and the radio show.
Awesome. No, that's great. Yeah, and I tell everybody, go out there and look at it. I did it today, and I've done it for a couple weeks now, so I get prepared for the show. But Dave, it's really been a pleasure catching up with you, and great talking to you, and I'm just really proud of what you've done and what you've accomplished, and you just live, like you said, living that dream. And
Right back at you, my friend. Right back at you.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, and again, thanks for joining us tonight.
That's awesome. Thank you, and let's stay in touch, Dan. Please.
We definitely will.
Good to meet you.
Yeah,
you too.
So we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up here. So for Steve Ellis, Dan Albers, and Dave Lenahan, you've been listening to Dingo and the Coach on USBN Sports. We'll catch you guys next week.